great conversations that are not intended for the room.
Yes.
We're interested. Okay, Asher, fine. Did you raise your hand?
Kvod Harav, I hope that your Shabbat is insulated from the news, but there is dreadful news this morning.
Yes, I'm aware, Asher Chaim. So we will begin with that. Did you want to say something else about that? I didn't want to cut off your thought. Yeah, so I don't know how many people know, but it seems like there's war in Israel as of today, this morning. I don't want to share details because I'm seeing pieces of news and I'm not clear on the story, but it involves rockets, and it involves, I've heard yeshuvs, like settlements in Israel that have been taken captive. At least 20 people, 20 Israelis have been killed. And again, I've just seen little pieces of the news, so I'm not here to share news. What I do want to do is have a moment of silence and prayer to just take in the sadness. And before we go there, Asher Chaim, did you want to say something? No?
Only that there are times and situations that make it seem impossible to focus on the study of Torah, and that these are the times that precisely we need to maintain our connection to Torah.
And to one another, And it's fine if we bring this into our study. What I don't want today is any kind of political discussion. I want acknowledgement. I want to make space for the acknowledgement of horror and sadness. And I'm going to turn it over to Paul, who wants to say something, and then we will begin our study.
Yeah, I certainly am not going to repeat any of the specific news, except to say that during the night, I've been in touch with a lot of my family and friends all over Israel and beyond Israel, and everyone I've spoken to or heard from is well. Also heard from Jeremy during the night. Jeremy and Dorit just arrived in Tel Aviv, I guess in the 24 hours before this, and they're well. And of course, I've been praying for everyone's welfare. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, so a moment of silence in the room and on Zoom, and then we will go to Torah study. This is a time of our joy, as it's written in the Torah, and we'll see more of that. And, sometimes reality doesn't line up with the command to be joyous, right? Either individually or collectively. So this is one of those times that there's dissonance in the command to be joyous. Okay, well, we're going to be looking today at Kohelet Ecclesiastes. And the reason we're looking at Ecclesiastes specifically is that it's the practice to read Kohelet Ecclesiastes on the Shabbat of Chol HaMoed, right? Of the Shabbat of the holiday, which is not on the Chag. But since this year we don't have a Shabbat that's not actually Chag, we read it on Shmini Atzeret, the holiday of Shmini Atzeret, the 8th day of, what's the word? Convocation. The 8th day of something, Shmini Atzeret. So the practice is to read it today. So we're going to look at some larger issues of the holiday of Tishrei and the trajectory and the unfolding of theology in this month. And it will land us in some very sober questions. which does sort of acknowledge some sadness alongside the joy of this season. So with that, Gil, if you can screen share the bracha over Torah study. And everybody, you can unmute yourselves, a cacophony of blessing. Baruch atah Adonai
Eloheinu,
Melech Haolam, Asher Banu La'asok B'Divrei Torah.
Amen, amen. Blessed are you.
Amen.
He's
Amen.
given his gift of Torah and commanded us to soak in your divine wisdom. Okay, I'm going to screen share. There we go. So let's think a little bit about the themes of this season. If we think about Rosh Hashanah, we don't really have to look really deeply into this text. It's a day of judgment, right? And what is judgment? Judgment is kind of very neat. Judgment, you know, you get a reward if you do good deeds, you get punishment if you do bad deeds. The world makes sense, right? Then we move to Yom Kippur and we kind of mess that up with forgiveness, because forgiveness is being forgiven, you know, around repentance, even if you don't deserve it, you did the bad thing, right? But so things are get a little bit messy, so to speak. Forgiveness is, yes, you did a bad thing. Yes, you hurt me, and I'm willing to move forward. Becca, I just realized it was you. Welcome, Becca. Becca is visiting us from far away. She walked in the room, said hello. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know who it is behind the mask, and I'm so happy to see you. So I just have to give you a special welcome.
Thank you, and same here. Happy
Yeah,
to.
special welcome.
I've never been in person to an
You've-
open book
You've
before.
never been in person to open book.
Yeah.
Welcome, welcome.
And I was on the West Coast. so
And you're
it's
like,
always
why is she so
really nice.
nonchalant and greeting me as if she sees me every week, right? So Becca, welcome. So, and then on Yom Kippur, you know, it's forgiveness, and there's a lot of liturgy around the golden calf. And, you know, there's huge punishment around that, but there's also forgiveness, you know, that results from Moses' intercession with God. And then Jonah at the end of Yom Kippur, it's forgiveness. He doesn't want God to forgive the Ninevites. In fact, instead of going to proclaim like, okay, everybody, if you don't make tshuva, you know, 40 days,
Yeah.
Nineveh is going to be destroyed, he runs in the other direction. And he says to God, I knew you were a God of El Rachum L'Chanun. I knew you were a gracious, you know, compassionate God. He doesn't like that, right? It makes the world kind of out of order. It makes the world a little chaotic. Like, you know, I want, you know, sin. I want punishment. Made a mistake, I want you to go to jail, right? I believe in the death, you know, in you know, capital punishment. There's something neat about that, right? There's something sort of symmetrical in a world that works like that. And we all know the world doesn't work like that. There are people in prison who are innocent, there are people executed, God forbid, who are innocent, there are people who are quote unquote bad, who have very happy lives, and are very wealthy and look like they have everything they want. The world just doesn't work like that. The world's kind of messy in that way. Then we get to Kohelet, and Kohelet, Ecclesiastes, is like, wow, it's so kind of mean. Like, what's going on? Right? We've been soaking in meaning all these days, this whole month, right? We have a paradigm meeting for Rosh Hashanah, a paradigm meeting, you know, over Yom Kippur. And now it's like, what's the point? So let's look at Kohelet's words. Okay. Any quick comments about this? And it's really interesting. If you think about Sukkot, right? This is the holiday of Visamach the Chagah, right? You should be joyous and celebrate. And Simcha, right? Joy is mentioned 3 times in relationship to Sukkot. Once in relationship to Pesach, and none in terms of Shavuot. So this is joy. What do we read? The most miserable, you know, Megillah scroll of all, right? The book of Ecclesiastes. It's terrible. So it's really interesting what's happening here. So that's basically my overall question. And we'll see what unfolds. I see there's like 11 comments in the chat. Should I look at them? Oh, oh no, nothing. Hello, welcome. You waiting for something?
Yes.
Are you here for Torah study?
Yes.
Yes,
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 yes.
Welcome. Okay. Let's see. Ashakai, do you feel like reading already? Yeah?
Rabbi Diane,
Yeah, oh, hold on one second, back.
I went to the Metropolitan Opera last night and saw Dead Man Walking.
Yeah,
And that is all about this issue of what is forgiveness, what is justice, and who gets it. The murderer wanted not to be killed himself, in spite of being a murderer. The parents of the kids who died wanted him dead. And the nun was trying to help him find God and trying to help him confess.
wow,
And it's this exact theme.
that sounds very powerful.
Mhm.
Okay, Ashakai.
דברי קהלת בן דוד מלך בירושלים. הבל הבלים אמר קהלת, הבל הבלים הכל הבל.
Okay, I'm sorry, stop. Stop. Okay, so words of Kohelet, son of David, king of Jerusalem, utter futility, said Kohelet, utter futility, all is futile. So let's just do a little exploring of some words here. So Kohelet is related to gathering, and we will explore that a little bit later on. Also notice who writes this book according to the book? Ben David. Who's Ben David? Melech Yerushalayim in Jerusalem? Solomon. But for some reason, Solomon's name is not there. Weird. Actually, I don't have an answer for that one. So keep it in mind as a question. Then Havel Havalim. It's a very interesting word. It says utter futility, but Havel is some kind of, it can be translated as vapor, or Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, may his memory be a blessing, translated as shallow breath, which is fascinating. It occurs 38 times in the Torah besides in this book. And I think 5 times right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, 5 times right here. And, words for soul are always related to breath, right? Like neshama, ruach, and in other traditions as well, right? Soul are related to, like, words for soul related to breath. So here there's something shallow about the breath. And as I was talking to my friend Rabbi Sharon Cohen-Anisfeld, we landed on ephemerality, right? All is ephemeral, all is vapor, all is saying, "Hi, Ilana, great to see you in the room." Okay, I think that was my discursus at this moment.
Rabbi.
Tony, okay, Ashachayim.
מה יתרון לאדם בכל עמלו שיעמול תחת השמש? Should I read and translate or just read?
Yeah, read and translate, thank you.
What advantage is there for a human in all of the work that the person works underneath the sun? Dor holech v'dor ba ve'ares le'olam umadet. A generation goes, a generation comes, and earth forever stands. V'zarah hashemesh uva hashamesh v'el mekomo sho'ef zoreach husham. The sun shines, the sun recedes, and to its place it sho'ef glides back, and that's where it will shine again. Holech el darom v'sovev el safon, sovev sovev holech haruach, v'el svivotav shav haruach. It drifts south, it drifts north, it drifts and drifts. The wind goes ever turning and returning. Kol hanahalim holchim Should be Hayam, I thought. Hayam inenu male. El makom shehanahalim holchim sham heim shavim lalahed. All of the wadis flow down to the sea, but the sea is never filled with them. To the place where the wadis go, that's where they return.
Okay, let's stop for a minute. So basically he's saying, what's the point? Right? What's the point? Sunrises, sunsets, we're toiling, we're efforting, we're working hard, we're striving, we're struggling. What's the right in the face of
It's a question.
it is a question. It's a good question. And I think, it's said that Solomon writes this in his older age, at this point in life, my life, I was like, I thought this would happen, this would happen. They didn't happen. Are they gonna happen? They're not gonna happen. They might not happen. So what's the point? Right? What's the point? So what is happening? And is that enough? Rachel's laughing in recognition.
Yeah.
So, whether you had big dreams as a young person that were fulfilled or not, right? It comes up at some point, which is what's the point? Okay. Let's just see if let me see, yet the sea is never full. It's also here, we look at 8 for a second. So called Barim Yigeim Lo Yuchal Ish Tizaber Velo Tis Ba'ayin Le'ot Velo Timale Ozen Mishmoa. So it's like it's never enough. Like we're never sated. All such things are worrisome. No man can ever state them. The eye never has enough of seeing, nor the ear enough of hearing. So we go on wanting and wanting and wanting, and there's no satisfaction. Okay. So anything else here at your time that you want to point to or read?
Ve'ein kol hadash tachat hashamesh. There's nothing new under the sun.
So in 14, wait, where are you? 9.
End of 9.
Okay. Ma shehaya hu sheyeh uma shena'asa hu sheye'aseh ve'ein kol chadash tachat hashemesh. So what was will be, what was done will be done, and there's nothing new under the sun. Right? Lives of repetition. Lives of repetition. I'm remembering that Nietzsche said something about eternal repetition, and like the test of a person's sort of strength is like, are you willing, eternal recurrence, I think it is. Does anyone remember? Eternal recurrence is like, are you willing to go through your life again and again and again? Like, is there meaning in all this repetition?
Yes.
Yes, there is that.
There's no choice.
Right. So even thinking about, to go back to the beginning, like war in Israel, like, oh my God, again? Again, my husband's a journalist who reported for years in the Middle East, and he couldn't stand anymore. He's just like, it's just the same story again and again, again. What are we fighting for? What are we doing? So we're going to see that there are some responses embedded in Kohelet. Okay, I don't think we have to go through this whole passage.
Rabbi, could I say something?
Yeah. Go ahead.
The idea that there's nothing new under the sun is completely counterfactual. It's just not true.
Well, there are lots of things that are new under the sun, and there are lots of things that aren't new under the sun. Ben.
Yeah.
Right. So it is and it isn't. Okay, let's stop here and see if there are any comments before we go forward. Yeah, Rachel.
At the risk of sounding pompous, I think once we entered the nuclear age, it was apparent that we could blow up the whole human enterprise and have nothing. And now that we have the climate crisis going on, and we've passed 1.5 centigrade, which is some kind of a barrier to blowing ourselves up, it becomes even more apparent. So I think there is something new under the sun. This is the first time
The ability to just.
that we can blow up the whole darn enterprise, Kohelet and the whole shebang.
There's another comment?
Yeah, the comment had to do with, it's obviously somebody very old writing this. Because those of us who are in our eighties, when a war starts, we've seen it before, we know it's, we know no one's gonna win. And I remember when Bush entered Iraq and my nephew, who was then in his thirties, maybe said, oh, this is going so well. I said, well, just wait, because all you're really doing is spreading chaos. You're not doing it, accomplishing anything. And Solomon knows that.
So there's something about being able to see patterns when you're older, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean. Yeah, okay, yeah.
First, from the non-dualistic point of view of all the mystic traditions that I'm aware of, all this world is manifest.
Okay, I think speak a little louder, but.
All this world is manifested in a vision,
Not a
still like the
vision.
way we see it, but underneath it's all one reality. Okay? In this world, we are the one that give it meaning. So
We're the ones who do what?
Give it meaning.
And the strongest thing is the poem of Leah Goldberg that relate to it. And if you say, אין חדש תחת השמש, and then say, ואתה בא בימים, זה האפוזיט of אתה זקן, אתה בא בימים, מאוד, וזקנת וסבת, and we are very old now, ותדע, חדש כל יום תחת השמש, אחרון כל יום תחת השמש, ותדע, חדש כל יום תחת השמש, in English.
Beautiful.
Should they say it in English?
Yeah.
Or- Yeah, in English it said, now that you are really old, when you were young, everything was said, or when you are in middle of summer. But when you are now, you know every day could be the last day.
Yeah.
And you know now, every day is a new day.
Mm.
It's your understanding.
Yeah.
So you're saying when you're facing your mortality, you actually feel that sense of newness and
The
gift.
moment of twilight.
Beautiful, okay. Okay, so now I see a bunch of hands. So I'm gonna ask everyone to be brief, so we can go back to our text in a little while. Tony,
Has everyone heard the news this morning?
yeah, we can talk about it, you missed the beginning.
What was it? That's all.
There's a war in Israel.
And I will just add the comments about that I just heard that Trump made yesterday are wildly warmongering comments, like shoplifter should be executed. And one of the other ones was that immigrants are just spoiling our blood.
Scared, very scared.
Yeah.
Nothing new.
Gotcha.
So if it's the same old thing, I have to make sure I'm new. It can't be the same old thing if I have a new take on it, or I haven't, I mean, that's our job here
Beautiful,
on earth.
beautiful, and that
To
relates
make
to
sure
what
that
Nehemiah said.
we're new,
Uh-huh.
you know, that we have a new outlook. And maybe now that we've returned, done Shuva, we are able to look at things anew. You know, we have a lot removed from us, and a lot of weight, emotional weight, hopefully removed from us, and we can look at things differently. And we're assured it's going to be the same thing each time this will happen. And what is our take on it should be new.
Thank you, thank you. So something about this season is renewing and give us an ability to see new. And be new, thank you.
Right.
Okay, yes,
She had her.
Oh, yeah.
this lady.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you, I'm Elizabeth.
Bless
you.
Yeah, I just think on a macro level, there's always been changes, even in ancient times, there were climate changes, all kinds of things they had to deal with external. But on a personal level, I feel that we're all, and especially as you get old, going around, that you, and I think that artists experience this, they go back to the well. And I think as human beings, we make progress, but we're always going back to, and that circularity, I think, is here.
Yeah, I want to take this question of feeling stuck in the old seriously, because I don't think anyone escapes it at one moment or another. I mean, it's nice to aspire to a new perspective. I don't think we always can reach that place.
Amen.
Okay, yes.
What I was going to say is, I don't know if it's a question or a statement, but I'll make it anyhow.
Yeah.
I appreciate this today. Could it be that Solomon was a person who had experienced so many, a multiplicity of blessings to the point where he said, I got me maid servants, men servants, houses, land, etc. And getting older,
Horses and wives.
horses, and
Building a temple.
concubines,
Yes, yeah.
and he could
We
it
won't
be,
mention that.
huh?
Go ahead.
Could,
yeah.
could it be that he was saying,
What's the point?
I've received so much, and yet, like the person that says, I want this, when they get all that they want, it's unfulfilled, and in their old age, they're backing away, kind of losing it out with God a little bit and becoming bitter because it didn't please them like they thought with that.
Sure,
Amen.
sure.
Amen.
Sometimes you think you want a whole life and you get that whole life and it's not working for you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Alana, did you have something? Yeah. Becca.
Well, this may seem simplistic. I think about every spring. I grow vegetables and flowers. I'm a big gardener. I live with the natural world constantly. And every spring, when the things I planted come up, when my berry shrubs start to bud and etc., I'm always very grateful and thankful that it is the same, that we get that chance every year to grow things again, to do a better job stewarding the plants and all that. And I guess I feel the same thing about, like, thank God, we get a second chance to say I'm sorry, to do it better next time. And so I see all these other points about the repetition and futility, but also I'm glad for the
Repetition is a
sameness
blessing.
and predictability and
But it's interesting because you're also talking about new things growing. So it's newness in the face of the repetition. Yeah,
Right.
okay, David Siegman, online, on Zoom.
Shabbat Shalom. I'm thinking of the phrase Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem. And Batya's point was, I thought, so spot on. And, one take on that phrase from the liturgy might be, renew our days, not as of old, but renew our days back when we had a child's mind, when we had an open mind, when we were curious, when we were flexible, when we were able to make room for new ideas, when beliefs hadn't become, fixed. So just a thought to kind of piggyback on what Batya was saying.
That's beautiful because we always have that resource because we were once young, each one of us. Right? The resource is there.
We are everyone we've been.
Yeah. Okay. Sharon and then Jill and then back to some text.
Hi, Shabbat Shalom, Hag Sameach. So the thing that strikes me about this book is that God appears to be absent. And it feels like it's a very secular book in a way. And it's interesting that you invoke Nietzsche, because it's as though God is absent and the religion itself is absent. And the things that give meaning to one's life, I feel like there's a way in which the structuring of time through Judaism gives my life meaning and purpose. This is almost an existentialist point of view where you start with meaninglessness, with nothing, that existence has no essence. And then you have to find your way into that meaning. But it's not with God and religion. It seems to be self-generated, or it comes from the pleasure of the senses. And I just find it interesting. It's like, what's the other book? The book of Esther, where God is absent. It's just something I noticed. That's all.
Yeah, it does seem to be, at least what we're looking at here, devoid of kind of God consciousness. In other places in the book, there is more awareness of the divine, but you're right, it seems to be almost outside of the tradition. Okay, Jill, and then Nikki, I'm gonna go on and get to you later. Okay, I'm not taking more comments after Jill at this moment.
Okay, I'm glad that the last person just made that comment that it seems to be devoid of God. And I think that the way that I've learned about Kohelet, Ecclesiastes, is that the whole idea that nothing is new under the sun is basically without God, so that there's this whole world over the sun that we're not tapping into. And, King Solomon, who, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought King Solomon wrote, Kohelet, Ecclesiastes. He had achieved all the things all the material things, all the secular things, for lack of better words, that anybody could want, all the wisdom. How many wives? 900 something wives. I think he lost count probably at a certain point. And had all the genius and knowledge. But he's explored the depth of that and found that there's nothing there. And so there's this juxtaposition between what's over the sun versus what's under the sun. And, I as a poet, I feel like there's a whole book of Kohelet which is over the sun, which is going to be the equal and opposite reality that needs to be written.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Okay, we're going back to these texts and let us look at, the use of the word Hevel in terms of the person Hevel and Cain in Genesis. And it says, we're just going to introduce these concepts and this kind of polarity that's set up in Genesis. So we're now in source 4. Adam Yadar Chava, so the first person, Adam, slept with his wife Chava, Eve, Ishto, the Tahar Batered, and she became pregnant and she gave birth to Cain. Now, Cain is really interesting in terms of Cain and Hevel, or Cain and Abel. Cain means to acquire, acquisitiveness, right? The Tomer, Kaniti Ish et Adonai. I have acquired a man from God. And then she went on to give birth to his brother Et Havel, to Abel. By he Hevel wrote Et son, and it's interesting. She doesn't give an interpretation of the name Hevel. It's just Havel. It's just Hevel. And Hevel was by he Hevel wrote Et son, was a shepherd. But Cain haya oved adama, and Cain was a worker of the earth. Okay, so we all know what happens between Cain and Hevel, and Cain is jealous of his brother. You could say that Cain is acquisitive, right? And Cain ends up killing Hevel, vapor boy or vapor man, right? And Hevel has like a brief moment in the sun and it's gone because of this acquisitiveness, because of this jealousness, because of this competition. So this duality, this polarity, this conflict is set up very early in the Torah. And now the book of Ecclesiastes is picking up on this ephemerality. And also, I'm sorry, what's your name? I'm sorry.
Elder.
Elder.
Well, I'm an elder. Yeah.
Elder. As Elder was saying, all this acquisitiveness on the part of King Solomon, right? And King Solomon's like, I have all this, what does it mean? What does it mean? Right? And sometimes you have a goal and you achieve the goal and you're like, huh? What? Right? Why did I want this?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go on. So what are some of the sort of embedded, and I'm not going to cover them all, embedded responses to Kohelet's question? So the question of Ecclesiastes is like, what's the point? So what's the point? So let's look at the end of Dvarim, which brings together the idea of Kohelet or to gather, and Chag Sukkot, and the holiday of Sukkot. And turn it over to Asher Chaim again.
ויצב משה אותם לאמור, נקס 7 שנים במועד שנת השמיטה בחג הסוכות. Moshe commanded them, saying, at the end of 7 years, at the sacred season of the year of Shemitah, of cessation, during the festival of Sukkot, בבוא כל ישראל להיראות את פני אדוני אלוהיך במקום אשר יבחר, תקרא את התורה הזאת נגד כל ישראל באוזניהם. When all of Israel comes to be seen in the presence of Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, your God, in the place which will choose, you shall recite this Torah across from Israel into their ears. Hakhel et ha'anashim v'hanashim v'hakrof v'gerecha asher b'sha'arecha lema'an yishme'u u'lema'an yilmedu v'yar'u et Adonai Elohechem v'shamru la'asot et kol divrei Torah hazot. Hakhel, assemble, gather the nation, men, women, children, resident alien in your gates, so that they will hear and they will learn and they will fear Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, your God, and observe to carry out all of the words of this Torah. Uvnehem asher lo yad'u, yishma'u ve'lamdu liyir'a et Adonai Elohechem, kol hayamim asher atem hayim al ha'adama, asher atem ovrim et hayarden shamma lirishtah. And your children who don't know will hear and learn to fear Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, your God, all of the years that you are living on the land which you are crossing the Jordan over there to inherit.
So there's lots of associations between Chag HaSukkot and the holiday of Sukkot and gathering in the Torah. This is one of them. And I think it's really interesting because even though your Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are collective experiences on some level, there's a lot of, looking at a lot of the experience is between ourselves and between ourselves and God, right? And Sukkot is sit in a sukkah, sit in this unprotected place, right community. And I'm realizing I had a kind of Kohelet-like conversation with someone in a sukkah this week. We had a Chesed gathering that some of you were at, Alan, Elizabeth, and it was really a beautiful, potluck dinner. And we're sharing our blessing, our bounty. And someone was telling me that they're having a hard time because they're losing a lot of their friends, right? It's a time of life where they're losing. And of course, that's depressing. And we're discussing what might be helpful. And he said something so beautiful. He said, I know that the only answer is going out of myself and serving, is connecting to other people. And I had myself a kind of experience like that this week where I was in my own little drama and I called a friend to tell her the drama. And it turned out that she was going through a crisis. And I realized I felt so much more alive when I was trying to help her than when I was trying to solve my own little crisis, which was really a little crisis, like a matter of the ego, and hers was a real thing. And it's it reframed everything. So I think there's something about Sukkot and gathering and connecting that's part of the answer to Kohelet's question. And it's embedded in the name of the book, which is to gather. Okay, so that's one thing. Now, let's go into, I'm not going to sing it, but if someone else wants to sing a few bars of the song inspired by chapter 3, now we're in sort of 6. There's a season set for everything. Okay, Asher Chaim, would you go on?
I'm sorry, I had to enlarge this. L'kol zman v'et l'chol hefetz tahat hashamayim. There is a set time for everything and a season for every hefetz, object of desire, under heaven. Ait laledet ve'ait lamut, ait lalta'at ve'ait la'akor natua. A time to give birth and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot that which is planted. Ait laharog ve'ait lirpo, ait lifrotz ve'ait livnot. A time to kill, a time to heal, a time to break down, a time to build. Ait livkot ve'ait lishok, ait sfod ve'ait rakod. A time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to give eulogy, a time to dance. Ait lashlich avanim ve'ait knos avanim. Ait lachavok ve'ait lirchok mehabek. A time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace, a time to distance from embracing. Ait levakesh ve'ait la'abed, ait lishmor ve'ait lahashlich. A time to seek, a time to abandon, a time to hold on, and a time to cast away. Ait likra' ve'ait litpor, ait lahashot ve'ait lidaber. A time to tear, a time to sew back together, a time to be silent, a time to speak. Ait le'hov ve'ait lisno, ait milhama ve'ait shalom. A time to love, a time to hate, a time of war, and a time of peace. Mayitron ha'oseh ba'asher hu amal. What advantage is there for the one who does whatever he is laboring at? Ra'iti et ha'inyan asher natan Elohim livnei ha'adam la'anot bo. I saw the matter which God has given to humans. How does he translate la'anot bo? To be concerned with. Et hakol asa yafe ve'ito, gam et ha'olam natan b'libbam mibli asher lo yimtza ha'adam et ha'ma'aseh asher asa ha'elohim merosh ve'ad sof. Everything was made good or appropriate for its time. Also, the world God gave in their minds. Oh, I better read from the translation.
Eternity
Puts
as
eternity in their mind, but without man ever guessing from first to last all the things that God brings to pass.
yeah, it's either world or it's eternity, which might be a better translation here,
Yeah.
right? We can grasp eternity even though if we're not eternal beings.
Maybe we are eternal.
Maybe we are. You're right. Maybe we have eternal souls.
Among
Okay.
the words in Hebrew that are either spatial or temporal, it's the everything of the entire world or the entirety of time.
Yes. See everything. God bless you. Okay. Just one more verse.
Yadati, ki ein tov bam, ki im lismoach vela'asok tov b'hayav. I became aware that there is no intrinsic goodness in them, except lismoach, to rejoice, and to do good during one's lifetime.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I said one more verse, but I meant.
וגם כל האדם שיאכל ושתה וראה טוב בכל עמלו, מתת Elohim he. And so any human who can eat and drink and see goodness in all of their efforts, that is a gift from God.
Okay, so now, Kohelet is turning to simcha. So simcha, your enjoyment, is it joy? And I want to look at this little piece of commentary. It's personal, not communal. It's personal. This goes back to Sharon's point, Sharon Dolan's point, because even though God is mentioned here, it seems to be enjoyment of like the physical life, right? The good things.
Your own stuff.
Right, it's like the good food, the good whatever, the good experiences. Okay, so now let's read this. I'll read it, and this is from Sharon Cohen Anisbel, who quotes the Tanhuma. And this Shabbat we will read from the book of Kohelet, where it is written, "Etakol asaya fet to gamet haolam natan bolibam." So we just read this. God brings everything to pass precisely at its time, and also puts eternity in their hearts. Midrash Tanhuma reads this verse creatively. not as ha'olam, a trinity, but Helen, hid, Elem. God hid the time of death from the human heart. What does this mean? If the Kadosh Baruch Hu, if the Holy One, blessed be she, had not hidden death from the human heart, it's possible that a person would not build and plant. For he or she or they might say, tomorrow I'm going to die, so why should I stand and tire myself out for others? The Bicha, Elim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hu Milibot Shel B'nei Adam, Et Yom HaMitah, Yehe Adam Bonet V'Notea. Therefore, the Holy One, blessed be, the Holy Blessed One, hid from human beings the day of their death, so that every person would continue to build and to plant. Because oh, I'm going to die tomorrow. What's the point? What's the point? I wouldn't be with you. I'd be hanging out with my family. One more day, right? In the face of both the certainty and the mystery of our death, this is our purpose and our obligation for as long as we are here, to build and to plant, to live and to give life as joyously and generously as we can. I think that's like a beautiful, beautiful midrash and concept, right? So we don't know, and in the face of that, we can only assume continuity, and that it is our responsibility to build and plant. So I'm not taking hands of people who have spoken already, because there's not a lot of time left. Not a little bit. No. Nikki and Amy have been waiting. I'm sorry, Bacha. Afterwards, in the after party.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rabbi, and all the people who are sharing. This is my first Zoom meeting, so I'm a little shy about it. But and also I was involved with the tragedy that's occurring. Or
Nikki, we can't see your face.
I know here I can't get. I'm too short. Okay. So I'm sorry, I missed the introduction because I was preoccupied with the situation in Israel. But I want to take up Sharon's point again, that there's something about this book that also seems to me not very Jewish, more like Greek or something. I didn't get the date of its composition, or would there possibly be any non-Jewish influences on the writer?
There are always influences from surrounding cultures, always.
Are there any cultures in particular that have this kind of?
Yeah, the Greeks, for sure.
That's what I thought. It seems particularly like a Greek outlook. I know the Book of Job was heavily influenced by Greek tragedy. And I wonder if this wasn't also, heavily influenced by Greek thought.
Or the Greeks were heavily influenced by this.
What is the date of this composition? Did you say?
Yeah, I have no idea. I don't, not a history person, for those of you who study.
I'm sorry.
That. I don't really remember dates, but please share the abundant knowledge in the room.
Well, if Solomon wrote it, it would have been in the first millennia.
If Solomon wrote it, it would have been, right, the first millennium. Right. So Solomon lived around 900 BCE, something. If Solomon wrote it, and it's attributed to Solomon, then we're at 900 BC, around that.
Thank you.
Okay, Amy, let me just look at the time. Okay, Amy.
I wondered, can you put the Hebrew for Kohelet back up on the screen?
I'll put it in the chat. Hold on one second.
The reason I'm asking is because the way it appears, the way it's been, it's almost like dancing. It's almost like they're dancing in a circle. When you look at the way they've placed the Hebrew, it's not just line after line after line, but it's kind of spotty. And I wondered if anybody, if you or anyone in the room knew why it was placed that way, because it is such an unusual placement.
Ecclesiastes 3, you mean?
Yeah.
The one you just showed.
It's set up as a poem. Because it is a poem.
And so that's a poetic setting rather than it just is so reminiscent of dancing that as things are going around and around and around, perhaps they're dancing and singing in a circle
Yeah.
as they're saying it.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the comments afterwards are decidedly different in terms of the quality of the prose. But you feel like we're going from poetry to prose. It's like there's the poetry, and then okay, and then these are the conclusions I come to based on this. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, Rhoda.
Oh, hi. Oh, for anybody who hasn't been in a sukkah in a long time, I was invited to a sukkah, and it was such beautiful people and such connection and such upliftment and truly open-hearted. So it was certainly a renewal, because when you find real connection suddenly with new people, it's connection. And now, one more thing. I was wondering, Rabbi Diane, if you can do anything about having people on Zoom able to unmute during the service. I couldn't unmute when we were asked to mention the names of people who recently died. My brother did this week.
Rhoda, I'm so sorry. May his memory be a blessing.
There'll be another opportunity this morning, I guess, if we can unmute. Thank you.
I will inquire. Are you able to put his name in the chat or not so much?
No, I'm not able to do that. I had just written to you. I was just like to say
Can you tell us his name now, Rhoda?
Oh, that's great. Yes, his name is Philip, and my mother's name is Batya.
All right.
Blima, rather. Blima. She had different name. Blima.
And I'll be in touch with you. Okay.
Oh, thank you. Beautiful. Thank you.
Did you call on me?
Alina, I called on you. I'm just laughing because
I very rarely say anything. I listen very intently, and I always feel like this is the same as the Abraham being asked to kill his first son, his son that he loves. To me, the same message is there: non-attachment. Do everything. I feel like the real thing about don't invest in your ego in everything and just live. I feel like they're both giving the same message.
Beautiful. So, if you think about like what it means to sit in a sukkah and sort of, in this unprotected, flimsy hut, right? In whatever, I know the season is different here than in Israel, but, we're so in touch with our own vulnerability and our own fragility. And it's a very strange combination of a harvest holiday and we're enjoying our abundance, right? And we're sharing our abundance with one another. And that sense of fragility, right? And it feels like, after all is said and done, we went through Rosh Hashanah and the judgment and Yom Kippur and the forgiveness. And, what do we have left? We have this connection. We have this, we have this abundance. We have this blessing. And we're left with our own vulnerability, no matter what we've done or not done on all these holidays. Okay, I want to read a couple of things from Ellen Lou, and then I see people who've already spoken want to speak again. So we're going to make time for some quick comments. So Rabbi Ellen Lou, who says, number 10, and when we speak, I'm sorry, I have to share my screen. And when we speak of joy, we are not speaking of fun. Joy is a deep release of the soul, and it includes death and pain. Oh, I love that. Joy is any feeling fully felt, any experience we give our whole being to. We are conditioned to choose pleasure and to reject pain. But the truth is, any moment of our life fully inhabited, any feeling fully felt, any immersion in the full depth of life can be the source of deep joy. Wow, nobody likes it. So I've come to a place where I'm rejecting the whole concept of happiness because it's such a summary of one's life, and one's life is such a mix of different things. And to sum it up that way almost feels like to do violence. Even to say I'm okay, I don't know if I'm okay. There's such a range of things I can tell you about my life right now. Some of them are okay, some are not okay. It's like a mix. Like, why do I have to sum it up that way? Like, why do I have to be happy? Why do I have to be okay? It's just like, it's a mix, and we're going to get to the mix in a minute. So Ellen Lou continues. We sit flush with the world in a house that calls attention to the fact that it gives us no shelter.
Mm.
It is not really a house. It is the uninterrupted idea of a house, a parody of, right? Because the essence, right, the legal status of a sukkah is that it's arai, that it's temporary. It cannot be a permanent structure. And it exposes the idea of a house as an illusion, right? Protection itself is an illusion, as we've come to see, especially in our times with climate change. The idea of a house is that it gives us security, shelter, haven from the storm. I'm not putting down all those things. They're all really crucial. But in the end, there's something of an illusion there. But no house can really offer us this. No building of wood and stone can ever afford us protection from the disorder that is always lurking all around us. No shell we put between us and the world can ever really keep us secure from it. And we know this. We never really believed this illusion. That's why we never felt truly secure in it. In the sukkah, a house that is open to the world, a house that freely acknowledges that it cannot be the basis of our security, we let go of this need. The illusion of protection falls away, and suddenly we're flush with our life, feeling our life, following our life, doing its dance. As Amy was saying, one step after another. Okay, one more thing. I'm going to open it up, and then we're going to end with a wonderful poem. So here's the Zohar, and the Zohar, has a big thing about serving the poor, right? The Zohar is our mystical literature, and yet this thing about I don't know exactly if it's social justice, but helping people in their need is really important. So it says, when people sit in the sukkah, the shade of faithfulness, the shekhinah, the indwelling feminine divine manifestation, spreads her wings over them, and Abraham, 5 other righteous ones, and King David make their dwelling with them. And so people should rejoice with shining countenance every day of the festival, together with these guests, the ushpizim, the ones that we call into the sukkah, these people who are no longer living, who lodge with them. And we must gladden the poor, for the portion of the guests one invites comes from the enjoyment felt by the poor. And on some level, there are definitely people who are much poorer than others. In some sense, we're all poor, we're all needy, we're all hungry, we're all deprived in some way. And I don't mean to erase the understanding and the acknowledgement of privilege, which is also crucial. But in just some level, there's a vulnerability, there's an unprotectedness, there's an exposure that we all experience at one moment or another. So 2 quick comments. I'm going to stop the share, and then we're going to end with a poem. So Bach has really been trying to just say something. Go ahead.
Just it could be very faulty pacification to say there's a time for hate and a time for love and a time for this. It's everything is degree. When I get angry now, I say, okay, stop. I'm not going to keep getting angry and so on. We have to be careful about what we say and also not to do time for war, time for peace. I've left that already, so I'm a little.
So you're saying things are measured and mixed.
Things are
measured and
mixed, and that's very important. And
okay, Roger, I'm gonna go on.
Listen, the way to deal with that is to stop and get help on what your problem is in being a way that you don't want to be.
I'm a big believer in getting help. It's very hard to resolve one's problems alone, at least in my experience. Spend a lot of time getting nowhere that way. Okay, go.
First of all, I do think saving souls is a team sport. It seems like that.
Saving souls is a team sport.
Hey, that's a freebie. The next one we'll talk about. But seriously, 2 quotes. First from the poet Leonard Cohen, who says, we all come to love, but as refugees, as poor people.
Beautiful.
And from T.S. Eliot, Four Quartets, two brief excerpts. Desire itself is movement, not in itself desirable. Love is itself unmoving, only the cause and end of movement, timeless and undesiring, except in the aspect of time caught in the form of limitation between unbeing and being. Sudden in a shaft of sunlight, even as the dust moves, there rises the hidden laughter of children in the foliage. Now, here, now, always. Quick, now, here, now, always. Ridiculous the way to add time. Stretching before. And one last little thing from him, just in passing.
We need to move on, and we need to end.
It's just one line. If you came at night like a broken king. If you came by day not knowing what you came for.
Okay, I'm gonna close. There's an after party. Okay, so Yuda Amichai, and this echoes what Bachi was saying. It's in Hebrew and English here. I'll just read it in English. A man doesn't have time in his life to have time for everything. To the last word of the page. He doesn't have seasons enough to have a season for every purpose. Ecclesiastes was wrong about that. Oh, I have to change the gender a little bit. A woman needs to love and to hate at the same moment, to laugh and cry with the same eyes, with the same hands to throw stones and to gather them, to make love in war and love, to hate and forgive and remember and forget, to arrange and confuse, to eat and to digest what history takes years and years to do. A man doesn't have time. When he loses, he seeks. When he finds, he forgets. When he forgets, he loves. When he loves, he begins to forget. And her soul is seasoned. Her soul is very professional. Only her body remains forever in immature. It tries and it misses, gets muddled, doesn't learn a thing, drunk and blind in its pleasures and its pain. He will die as figs die in autumn, shriveled and full of himself and sweet, the leaves growing dry on the ground, the bare branches pointing to the place. But there's time. Okay, everybody, we go into services with some sorrow, with prayer for peace, and with hope. Maybe.